Welcome, everybody, to The Vine and the Veil, the podcast where we dive between worlds to reveal the mysteries of the light and the dark, the wisdom of the spiritual, the wonder of the mystical, and the power of the supernatural. I'm Carlos, your host, and this is our co-host.
Maria.
And this is our sister, special
Veronica.
guest, Veronica, who decided to join us today for this podcast episode.
Middle sister in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle, always in the middle, in between. Ready, fight. Yeah, and by the way, when I was younger, I would always break up fights between the two of them. They would get in arguments over everything. But that's neither here nor there. And today we're going to talk about what?
We are doing our childhood ghost stories part 2. So we are getting our perspective from Veronica because we have you veil walkers already know what our history has been.
Right.
But we were speaking on your behalf, but I thought it would be best for you to speak what you've experienced. So
yeah, and so we're going to touch on a couple of different things. We're going to touch on childhood ghost stories because house was haunted, as you guys know, and we've all experienced different things, and so it'd be really good to get our sister's perspective on some of the things she saw because they were a little bit different from the things that we did, and just kind of experiences that we've had as we've continued to move on this journey in life. And then we can touch on things like astral projection, which we just talked about, sleep paralysis, astral projection, and kind of hear your perspective on what you think of it. And you've experienced it, obviously, yourself. And then the fun stuff, which is basically demons, do they exist? Vampires, do they exist? And all of that fun stuff, because I think that's something that you guys obviously are interested in. So let's get started.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes into all of this. We did have a really interesting experience as we were waiting for Veronica to show up today, where I'm going to ask her at some point whether she astral projected before she got here, because I think that's a possibility. But our front door swung open on its own. And then Daniel, my husband, and I were talking about it. Then Carlos comes in and we tell him what happened. And as we're talking about it, we hear 3 knocks. So completely out of nowhere, Daniel was a little obsessed because I was like, oh, welcome. Yeah, I guess that's a big no-no. So quickly I
it's ran. Like you're welcoming in a vampire, right? Like the vampire's at the door. And you're like, oh, hi, Mr. Vampire. Welcome. You can have free access to the house.
Oops. So, of course, I got a lot of crap from both my husband and Carlos. So I ran into the bedroom. I got the 6 grandfathers. Is that what that? Yes. Incense that we got from the Sword and the Rose from the witchy shop in San Francisco. Banished whatever was here, cleared out any spirits, but just out of curiosity, since you were on your way, was there a possibility that you were kind of astral projecting into our house?
So I think first and foremost, this is really cool because we all, even though we grew up in the same house, each of us had different experiences, just like every family does. But I think it's also, an adulthood has brought us closer together because now we have this cool perspective and can take in our perspectives. You know, after all these years, I think we've been like mulling these things over in our mind. Was this real? Was this not? What the hell is going on? Why is this happening to me? Why am I feeling this way? And then come to know, hey, this person sees stuff. Oh, this person feels stuff. They're in your family. Okay, so maybe we are all experiencing something, but in a way our gifts are what's showing us. So I think that's really cool that we're able to do this right now. And as far as that, the interesting thing is this morning when I was in between sleep, right? What showed me, and so things show themselves to me in images and words, and I hear things. And I saw in big fat balloon letters, but almost like psychedelic, was ghosts. That was the thing that showed up, and I start laughing because I knew I was gonna come here to do this podcast, and this is what we were gonna talk about. So it was either them telling me that get prepared, this is what we're gonna do. But as I was getting my stuff together to get here, I thought, okay, they're gonna need some agua florida, which is
Florida water.
Floral water. And what that is a clearer of spirits and things that is used in traditional Mexican magic or brujeria. So I have had a brew macerating for the last 3 weeks So I brought it here to actually give to them. So I think that was significant enough because something did come to visit them today. So it wasn't me, but I was prepared for what was here, and that's what we have in here is that
Yeah, so
masturbation.
Veronica is as part of she's the seeker of the
Yes.
group, and she goes and learns everything about everything. So right now she's on a quest to become more of a curandera or a healer type by understanding different combinations of plants, herbs, and how they work and what properties they actually have, which is kind of cool. So we get to enjoy the benefits of all of
Yes.
that.
She's not necessarily a botany class, but what is up here in Northern California, there's
There's an herbal school
yeah.
that teaches you how to create tinctures and how to basically become an herbologist. But I think it's more than that. You develop a relationship with plants, and I really believe that plants are living beings and they bring us medicine, and you have develop a relationship with them, and you talk to them, and they offer themselves to us for that medicinal purpose. And so we put it in a bottle, and maybe I'll put like the vine and the veil on here with your little
With our little logo, that'd be cool.
That would be
and
kind of
maybe
cool.
if you guys want some of this, it's actually pretty cool because it was made on the full moon.
And there's obsidian in there.
Even better.
And
obsidian from our land.
Yeah,
Because that's one thing she asked, and I was like, let's explore and find some. So we were able to get some, and next thing I know, she's with a hammer chiseling little pieces off and putting it inside of her little bottles of Florida.
So not only do we have the mixture of all of those herbs, but we have obsidian, and it's made with full moon water.
Yes.
Or
That
under the
is-
full moon.
That's
and
a
then
concoction.
there's Reiki as well.
Oh, damn.
Yes.
Extra.
She's a Reiki master.
Jeez.
So we actually learned Reiki from nuns in Southern California. I only got to level 1. She went above and beyond and decided to go and get her master's on her exploration into the esoteric. And what spurred you on that? Like, how did you get on that journey?
I think I wanted an answer to everything that I've gone through. I think if we want to start talking about that, going back to as a child seeing things and my mom being scared that I was seeing things, I think that I would tell her that she wasn't my mom. I'm assuming that I had my past life still came in with me as a child, so I couldn't understand who is this like indigenous looking woman that's my mother.
You're not my mom.
Because our mother was very indigenous.
My mom was a 6'4" white lady in the Nordic Valley. So
something like
I was
that.
a Viking.
Yeah,
So this time where you were talking about mom not being your mom, was that during the time frame of the bird?
yeah.
Yes.
Well, and then the whole bird thing is I used to see things outside of the window of where we used to live, and I was really little, apparently not able to talk clearly, so a toddler. And most of this stuff is fuzzy. I do remember the room. I do remember the window. I remember eyes, but I don't remember an exact shape of what things were. And of course, as years go by, kind of like those memories are fuzzy. But my dad did bring that up again with me probably about a year ago, what that was, because I was always curious what the hell happened.
Yeah, 'cause we lived in a trailer park.
Yeah,
that was
at
when
that
we were
part,
still living
yeah.
in a trailer park. So we had bunk beds, and there was a window right next to the bunk beds.
Was I even born yet?
You were a baby.
Yeah, you were
I
small.
must have been like
You were small.
maybe a year old.
You were small.
So
well, actually, if I was like, let's say I was 2. No, you weren't born. Mom was pregnant with you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the question that I have, and I'm sure some of our veil walkers also have, and you as well, is do you remember anything about when she dropped you off with the witch?
Oh, dropped you off
I
on the
mean,
witch.
I'm curious.
I mean,
Okay, so mom never wanted to tell the truth about that. All she would say is skimp over. A lady came and took care of what was happening with me. And then again, a year ago, my dad like told the truth because my dad was always hushed by my mom. Don't say anything. So apparently this went on until I was like 6 years old, which is kind of crazy to think about it for 6 years.
Yeah.
So by that point, we were already moved into this new house, and my mom like didn't know what to do because I was highly sensitive, and I was seeing so many things and feeling so many things, and it was just very overwhelming. And I think she just didn't have the capacity to understand. But now that I look back on it, I think she was very fearful of what was going on.
Yeah, I don't think that she didn't have the capacity to understand. I think she was legitimately trying to keep you from that because she knew that that existed in our family because her mom was that. So she didn't, it was almost like she wanted to erase that whole part of our existence there. Like she didn't want that to happen. So she was going to do whatever it took, even though she was highly religious, to put a block on it.
So let's dial down. So what you're really implying is that she knew that essentially your third eye was open, that you maybe inherited the lineage.
Yes.
And she kiboshed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Right. I never really thought of that perspective.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. I mean,
and you know, Mom,
she was very much not wanting, I mean, there was fear in that too, because her mom died very young. Right. So is that something that the fear of losing somebody because they're exploring or working that practice, is that the reason behind her fear?
I think that it was because she's so heavily indoctrinated into the church.
That could be it too.
That everything that it existed outside of that purview that wasn't blessed by the church is bad. It was evil.
So the irony about all that is that she's the one that found the bruja, let's just call her that, or the medicine woman, to come and help, because she actually sought out our grandmother, who at the time, on our paternal grandmother's side, that was kind of mixing up in that kind of
stuff. She was active,
right? She was active in that kind of thing. I mean, she went on and talked about she was speaking to spirits of
discernment. She astral projected. Yeah. I think that was in our last episode.
That's a whole interesting thing. So they found somebody. They came over to our house. My dad told me she brought like a pot thing, and had stuff in it. I'm assuming herbs, and she was adding stuff to it. And she had my mom and dad stand by the water, I think, or cauldron. I'm assuming it's a cauldron. I'm not too sure because it's so fuzzy. But we were, you, me, and Madi were sitting on the couch watching everything go down, right? And my dad said that they saw like smoke coming out and like an entity come through. So I don't know if she was extracting things from my dad at the time, because our dad is a war veteran, and there's a lot of attachments that man had. Or has.
I mean, what if it? What this is crazy.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is not a story.
I'm wondering if that was the reason what opened the portal.
Probably
was her doing intent, and this can happen sometimes, right? People, the intent is there to do good,
right?
But in the process of doing that, you are going and opening up something that you don't fully understand.
Correct.
And I think maybe that could be something that happened that actually allowed whatever additional things that were there in the house to kind of either amplify, or something else came through.
Yeah, I 100% believe. I'm kind of getting images of that right now.
Yeah, me too.
The portal opening,
I clearly don't
in that place, but his dad said that he felt better after that, which was attached to him, was taken away. But then she turned to my mom and said, and pointed at me, that I needed to go with her.
Wow.
For 24 hours. And
holy
when my dad said that to me, I said, what?
Who does that?
Who the hell lets their kid who's 6 years old go to a complete stranger?
No big deal.
For 24 hours. Like, you must be really desperate by that point. So then I started thinking, like, what the hell was I saying and doing? And I mean, most probably families that have children that are highly sensitive and speak things of knowing and understanding, and maybe have remote viewing, astral projection, or even feeling things, right, and seeing things because the third eye's open. They don't know what to do with them, and you obviously now many of them get sent to psychology and whatever
Mhm.
to kind
Medicated in
of say
some
it's
way.
Yeah.
hallucinations or whatever.
Right.
But in my mom's case, it's like she went back to an old tradition that
Right.
she knew was real for her and for her culture, and
Right.
decided to bring me into that.
And for
picture.
someone to be so fearful of that and like rebuke it, to go to that when she's the most desperate like that
Mhm. It's
is
interesting, right?
It's very interesting. Like the only
so
thing that I remember
mind-blowing.
seeing when you would say that stuff about the bird or whatever it was, I just saw shadow in the window. I never saw what you saw, but I saw there was something that definitely was there. But I never thought that it was scary when I was
And
reading
that's
about it.
what I think that
Wasn't
I
scary at
don't. The
all.
way I look at it is, I don't think that things are as good or bad,
Nope.
positive, negative, things like that. These are all just energies, right? Some are like higher vibrational energies
Right.
that you feel. Some are a little bit more stagnant, so you feel a little different way
Yep.
inside you. So I am not 100% sure what that was, but it was symbolizing something.
Right. I mean, it could be anything, right? When you think about it, it could be something that had remembered you from a past incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a guardian that
Could
was
be a
there to watch
guardian.
over you,
Right.
that somehow mom was afraid of, and now all of a sudden it blocked it from taking care of
The
you.
question I have now is, mom never admitted to seeing things. Like, I don't remember her ever admitting to seeing things, but what if she was seeing what you saw? And that's what
That
amplified
adds
her
another
fear.
layer to that. Maybe she did see that, but see, I don't remember
Mom
her
saw things.
seeing like, because she would believe us when we would say
Yeah,
things,
mom saw
right?
things.
Yeah.
But then she would always send dad to go do stuff
Like
with the holy
the holy
water,
water, Saint
Yeah,
Michael,
right?
because dad
Right,
didn't
or
really
prayers.
fully believe,
until
Yeah,
he
right?
started
Until he
seeing
but
started
things.
seeing.
but the very interesting thing about him, since I spent some time with my dad for a while, he started speaking about having dreams and premonitions and all this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait a minute, y'all kept on hiding this stuff from me, and I've been having these things happen, and I've become a seeker for these explanations. But
Right.
the source is right there, and
Yep.
they weren't even speaking about it because out of fear, or no, you're not supposed to, religious trauma,
That.
all of those things that we can name that are when someone comes to a different country, being assimilated into that new culture, what was right or wrong, and forgetting the old ways. But yeah, I was like shocked when he started talking about things, and then I asked him, like, Dad, why didn't you say anything? Like, I see things and hear and have these dreams. And he's like, well, your mom, she didn't want
Mm-hmm.
me to say anything. And I'm like, you were suppressing it too. Like, it would have been such a, I think personally, a much more healthier childhood if they would have been open with these types of things. So then the gifts
Absolutely.
can develop
Right.
over that time of childhood, versus trying to figure out what the heck, where you fit into things and what's going on with you, what's happening. Okay, this is strange, or am I hallucinating, or all those kinds of things that happen, or even being scared, because then
Right.
they start putting that fear in it that this is bad, that you're
Mm-hmm.
going through, that you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the spirits are after you, or that's demonic, or
It was always demonic.
It was always
Whatever
demonic because
else
it was
is
indoctrinated.
happening.
That was what the church taught, right?
Yeah.
You never hear people, or even in spirits in general, you very rarely hear recount stories about friendly spirits. It's almost always whether they were like terrifying spirits, like malevolent spirits, or a demon.
I think spirits were just one word bad.
Yes.
Well, I mean, anything outside of what was
Yeah.
practiced in the church or taught in the church was bad.
Of
So that's
course.
kind of how we grew up.
But that's the irony, because back in the Latin Mass, they used the Latin Mass to summon and conjure,
Yes.
and the people
all
in the
ritualistic.
Mass were used as that energy to
It's the energy.
amplify,
Yes.
right? All
Yep.
of that. So
It's basic. It's a basic ritual. It's
It
casting.
is ritualistic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
yeah. So that whole childhood experience, and kind of the universal flashlight flashing on what happened to me was quite a story. And from what I remember a woman older woman. I remember going to hospice, and I remember a lot of stuff happening. I remember plants or herbs, and I remember a basin with water in it, and like some noise being made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I'm making an assumption, she was trying to bring it back in. She was trying to bring my essence back in of who I am, who I'm supposed to be, or that. But I also think there was a blockage of sort, or a how did I feel about this morning? Like a binding
Mm-hmm.
of sorts, so that I no longer would see, and I would no longer feel the way I did. And I asked my dad afterwards when I came back. I'm all, "You're lucky I came back. God knows what would have happened to me." Like, geez, guys,
I know. I'm still worried about what happened to you.
I wonder if that ritual that she performed with mom and dad there was basically a binding ritual for everybody.
It could have been.
Maybe.
Like, that's
Maybe.
what mom wanted, and so that's what she
Mhm.
did.
Right.
So that's why we were all there.
Right. Because I'm very surprised that it involved all of us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
why did they have us instead of them going to this person's space? Why did they have to come to our
Yep.
house? And then why did I have to go?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then the other thing you can look at, what was I carrying? Did I have an attachment with me? Did she remove an attachment, or was I the source of all the chaos in
Or
the house
did
at
you
that
need
time?
more binding work because you were more open than we were?
Possibly.
Maybe.
So
Yeah,
many
there's
things.
so many different possibilities, right, that are there.
I mean,
but
24 hours is a really long time.
yeah, I mean, that's
So I think after that point, I just
imagine
stayed quiet.
if that would happen in this day and age. You get CPS called on
Hell
you in
yeah,
like
you
2.5
would.
seconds. I mean, that's like
Jesus.
What? So 6, that still was 1979, almost 80.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. When no one really
Yeah.
cared.
No,
Nobody
nobody really cared.
I was 4, 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's wild when you start thinking about that. So part of my seeking was to find out what happened.
Try to find answers.
Find answers, because I've always had this knowing and feeling, and then I have this dream state that's very active, and I also have this hearing and seeing of things, and I call them they. I don't have an answer to them because I don't identify with a guide. I don't identify with spirits, or like ancestors. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I label them as they or them because I'm not sure what it is, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That makes sense.
Or is it really my inner teacher, or my
higher self?
Yeah.
Right.
Or my future self telling me these
also,
things?
Could be.
I don't know. So
possibility.
I don't label it anything. I just say, okay, this is the guidance that I'm getting, and this is the direction I'm going to go, or this is the message that I have to give to somebody.
Yeah, this is what's coming through. Yeah.
And then the message is usually I approach it as, I am not sure why I need to tell you this, but blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And you do with it what
here's
you
what I'm
want.
getting. Here's what's coming through.
And then whatever, you're going to take it and do whatever you want with it. And that's just it. There's no more detail to it.
Right.
Because once you go into detail, then your mind comes online and adds the
adding
detail
the embellishments
and the pretty stuff to it, which may not be valid and throws off the whole suggestion, right, that you do give. So it was an interesting experience, you could say, and I'm still trying to figure it out. There's still a part of me that wants to know what it was. I mean, I guess I can do
hypnotherapy,
maybe, and go back to that spot when that happens, so then I can see
never
it.
know.
But yeah, I don't know.
Some things are just better left alone.
Maybe.
Right. Where you're just like, hey, you know what? It happened.
Yeah.
That was a thing. And maybe, when you think about the journey that everybody's on, maybe it was meant to be so.
Right.
Yeah.
That you're meant to be at this point in time in your spiritual development, and that happened only because of that.
Correct.
It pushed you to want to seek more.
I mean, that kind of is true for you too, right? Like,
yeah. And I look back on for me, it was just the heavy religious indoctrination that we went through. And looking back on some of the things that I felt or experienced, that was either my higher self or me or a future self or whatever it was trying to communicate with me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But those feelings, because of how fearful mom was and what she
Right.
told us, I interpreted that as something bad.
Right.
And I immediately started praying and trying to make it all go away. And
Mm-hmm.
so you shut it out.
You shut it
Right.
out.
You shut it out because of that, as opposed to looking back on it going, man, if I would have just understood or
Right.
had somebody to tell me, hey, those are, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, keep working, keep developing these skills, these abilities. It would have been different.
Imagine
But
how
Totally
good we would be at remote viewing.
oh, we'd be incredible. We'd be incredible at remote viewing and all of that stuff.
I have not started my journey to spiritual development on the way that they have. Like Reiki is pretty much the extent of it. Meditation, that was a kind of a changing point for me. But to go deep into like other esoteric practices, I haven't really delved into that. I don't know if I don't. There's not necessarily anything holding me from that, but I just don't know if I feel like I need it. But it would be interesting to try to develop some of it. I mean, it's interesting.
I think one of the things that I've learned that comes hand in hand with all of that stuff is just the idea that in order to fully embrace your abilities and learn, you have to do a lot of the work
Right.
inside of yourself and face yourself and face the challenges that you've gone through in your life and all the traumas that you've had and work through all of those in order to really, really be able to actually open yourself up to experience those things. Because if you don't do it that way, then you know it just becomes a little more challenging. And or I think sometimes people get stuck in a specific practice because that's what fills their cup and that's what becomes their identity.
Right.
Because of something that they're trying to fill, a void they're trying to fill, or they feel the ego push, like anything like that. And so the more you do on yourself to get yourself in a better place, the more you can, basically the more energy you can actually hold within your vessel.
And I went to the route of therapy. Like I had 3 different therapists in my life, and all 3 of them, I was so fortunate. They were all amazing and brought me to enlightenment for what I needed at that moment. But I do think I can find enlightenment in going down the spiritual path. I just need to figure out where my jumping point will be. So yeah, it's interesting.
I think that, like, just like with everything, I think our brain and our mind wants a recipe for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Structure, the number, how to do X, Y, and Z, because this is the truth and that's what it is. But in reality, we're ever evolving and things evolve from the energies that are around us. I mean, everything is cyclical, but it goes by within years, sometimes hours, and things like that. So nothing is ever the same at all. So it is normal for these, like, rituals, these learnings, these teachings to shift and change over time as we shift and change as well. And that's how we maintain that balance, right? Is to be able to be flexible and understanding and know ourselves, so then we know what resonates with us. So then we actually have a practice that helps us, right? Hone in on our gifts, understand things a little bit more, and then actually question everything, right?
I love questioning
everything.
Question everything.
I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is, like, I don't like using, that's my truth or whatever, because your truth today is different than tomorrow. So that's almost an invalid, lazy word. So it's all about what's happening in this moment in time, and whatever energies are here, how can you hone in on those to be able to help you evolve more and in whatever focus you have in mind to accomplish whatever that is, along your timeline.
And be willing to acknowledge that somebody else's truth isn't going to be your truth, right? You need to be curious to explore what your truth is. So like all of us in our spiritual journeys, like your truth, and my truth are entirely different things. And we do maybe have an influence on each other, but not necessarily driving. I mean, your practice has been completely different in what you're exploring versus what you're exploring. So it's all fascinating, but being curious, is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
There's so much to learn out there.
There's
which is amazing.
So many things to learn.
Yeah.
And if you tell me about vampires, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's hear about it. I want to know, because that's not my world, right? I don't see that world, or I haven't gone into that world, and if you come and start talking about that, I'll be like, all right, then tell me and show me. Like, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to invalidate you because there's this preconceived notion about things, but no, it's like what you are and who you are and who you are in that moment in time, then hey,
Yeah.
so be it.
And I think that's the other thing too, is you can't invalidate somebody else's reality because
For
you don't
sure.
see the reality the way they
Right.
see the reality. And that's the other part. I don't know what your nervous system is created for you based on your beliefs. If you believe, like we talk about all the time, right? If you believe in demons, you believe in vampires, you believe in these things, they will exist for you in your reality.
When you give power to holy water or an ankh or a symbol or
symbol.
whatever it is, a prayer, like that's valid to you, and that is your belief. Like you give that power.
Yeah, you hold its energy.
You hold
and
its
you
energy.
increase that.
You know what's really interesting? This leads me to want to talk about crystals, because crystals are like the gateway for spirituality for a lot of people.
It is such a gateway.
And you know, as you start going down the path and you start learning more and you start realizing that you're the one that gives power and intention, it's fascinating to think about all of these different crystals and the properties that they've been given. Somebody gave each one of these crystals properties.
Correct.
And created the narrative behind the crystal.
The crystal
I won't invalidate that each crystal has its own energy signature and vibration and frequency, for sure, absolutely. And this is what people feel when, you know, they put one on and it goes into their field, right? Because it's a different frequency and it's aligning with yours.
Yes.
But the properties that are assigned to each one and the fervent beliefs that people have in each one of these crystals, for them, great. But you have to realize you're giving that intention and the ability to that thing because you're creating it. You're the creator of it. The crystal itself doesn't have those properties innately.
Yeah.
You're giving those properties to that crystal.
Yeah. And I think that's, for me, I mean, I love witchcraft, right? I don't practice it, but I love maybe the theory and the thought about it. But isn't that what goes into every spell? Like those properties, we're embracing those properties. Like you embrace them to create and give power to your spell, whether it's protection or binding or whatever it is. Your belief, you're giving power to whatever it is, be it a crystal or an herb or a spell itself. Like that, it's amazing.
Right. And I think that when it comes to rituals or things like that, I think they're a great way for you to be able to focus on a thing. And human beings like structure. And so there's a structure to follow. People are like, oh, okay, cool. I could do this too.
Right.
I follow the structure. I do the things. I draw the symbol. And then I put my attention behind it and things start happening.
Right.
So now I believe that inherently that structure, that ritual has power.
Yes.
Well, you're the one that's giving that power.
Yes.
And I think that's where people kind of, you know, they start falling for the idea that, oh, this magic book of all of these things, it can give me power. Right.
So playing devil's advocate, we recently watched the movie The Witch Hunter. And one of my favorite, there's so many favorite scenes in that movie, but one of my favorite scenes in the movie is like when he's on the airplane and he's like, you put these 3 crystals together. Do you know, like you kind of calling her newbie witch, like you don't always know what you're doing. And it was causing the plane to almost crash. And so he was able to take them and separate them so they would be safe. So how would you explain that?
Explaining a movie?
I know it's Hollywood. It's Hollywood, but it's based off the theory of like there are certain things that you can mix together, and there's certain things that you shouldn't.
Each thing has its own vibration. Each thing has an own vibration, right? Each crystal has its own vibration, frequency through their properties and alchemy and all that kind of stuff. If we want to get into that, so in the past, I think this has come down our DNA. I'm just going to say that the alchemy has, the crystals have, and the ritual has. Egyptian magic, full of that, talismans, you know, and things of protection, and you can see it in every diaspora, right? Is that so? That's been handed down to us. I know that sometimes energies can be trapped inside crystals. So crystals hold a unique property, and some are a little bit stronger than others. So I think that's probably where we're getting at, is that these crystals do have these valid properties and they're very strong, and they're very unique beings to be able to enhance energies if needed to. I mean, look at our phones, right? The crystals that are in there communicate all that kind of stuff. So there is validity to that. Now Hollywood, I don't know about
I'm
that,
not talking
but
about
I do
Hollywood.
believe that if you put certain things together or too many things together,
Yes,
you can
that's
get
where I was
totally
going
thrown
with
off
it.
by it. If you have like, I got this, I need this one, I need this one for this one, this one, and then you have them all in your pockets. Well, sometimes things counteract each other.
Yes.
I'm taking something full of protection. Well, what are you asking for protection? It's protecting you from everything then. So the good and the negative don't come through. So you're missing out on a whole world.
Yeah, right.
So there's all
But
sorts of
that's my thing though, right? At some point, somebody had to assign those properties for you to believe that those existed in the crystals.
Yeah, the Crystal Bible.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
That was the first person that wrote the book.
Yeah.
I can't remember what her name
Right,
is.
but
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
Well, she wrote the book, but somebody like that, she learned that from somebody.
I think
probably
a lot of the
spoken words.
Egyptian line.
maybe. But how do you assign properties, right?
Somebody assigned it.
Somebody
they
created. This is where
they felt something that they assigned.
They
to
created
that
a narrative,
crystal.
and then
You're
based
correct.
on how they felt, they said, "Oh, this must mean this.
Yes.
This must mean this." But you know how belief works, right? If enough people believe in it,
of course,
now all of a sudden this has
It amplifies.
life,
right,
and power,
yeah,
frequency. So the more people that believe in anything, whether it's crystals, whether it's religions, the more power it has. And so I think that the more people that use crystals and believe in crystals and do that, of course, in this wonderful experience that we're all in, it's the people's belief that gives it that ability to be able to do those.
I can see that. So the only reason why I brought it up is I wanted to get that point, is some things counteract, some things don't mesh together. But you're right. Somebody assigned those properties that led to the belief that these things don't mix together. I have noticed a lot on TikTok where the more seasoned witch will often give a fair warning to the newbie witches, pretty much telling them, be careful what you're using, because sometimes it might have a negative result versus the result that you're intending.
Right.
So that's the only reason why I was trying to pivot there.
Yeah.
Not go Hollywood.
Like old grimoires talk
Right.
about using a certain crystal for a certain time, for Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, whatever, a certain day, because it corresponds to that, and it amplifies whatever ritual or whatever summoning that you want to do, because it amplifies things. So that's kind of what they're probably getting at, and what they're talking. But that's also, people go into study for that, and I think that most of what Carlos is also talking about is the gateway. Most people got on the bandwagon. You see it at Urban Outfitters and all these anthropology, crystals, amethyst. Oh my God, it does X, Y, and Z.
Amethyst was your gateway crystal.
Well, amethyst was my birthstone,
and also your gateway crystal.
My gateway crystal, but it is my amplifier on my Reiki board. So,
well, what's interesting about that on the other side of things is the crystals are kind of a lot of people's first foray into spirituality.
Yeah, sure.
Because they start delving into that, and then they're like, oh, well, there's other things that I can learn outside of this. This is kind of fascinating. Okay, let me try to move on to this practice. Oh, I know there's a practice of Buddhism. Okay, let me try to understand that more. How does that actually work? Or let me try sound bowls.
Yeah,
because sound bowls are interesting, and there's frequency and healing. So it kind of starts them on a journey. A lot of them.
Yeah, and I think it just paves a way to where, when you become, for female the crone, or male the wise man, you take all of that together and then you hone it into your wisdom, your knowledge, and that's what you can teach, because it's coming from your experience, whatever that is. And then people will come to you for the advice and the understanding and support, and you can give them, this crystal I use for X, Y, and Z, and that tradition moves forward, right, with the next person.
Sure, because I think that this is at least my opinion, is the people that have dealt in a lot of practices and kind of understand themselves fully, they don't need those things anymore. They don't need symbols.
Right.
They don't need crystals. They don't need anything because they understand that this is themselves. This is their energy that they can channel energy from the universe that they can channel to be able to do things and manifest what they want in this world to kind of help humanity or even help themselves in a way. And so when it comes to uh, crystals for them, they're probably like, okay, let me show you and let me understand that this is just the beginning.
Right.
So yes, do all of this, but here are some other things that you can then move to, so that your education and your knowledge on your path is a little more well-rounded.
Yeah, you're evolving, and that was my path. I evolved. I started in the regular job, not understanding what was happening, what I was seeing, and then I'm like, oh, across the street are the nuns in their little wellness center. I'm going to check that out. And I'm like, oh, they got it. They understand. They had all this mysticism. This was pre Benedict, Pope Benedict, when the Jesuits allowed the nuns to be more free with some of the stuff that they were doing. And they were doing a lot of mysticism, a lot of plant medicine kind of stuff, a lot of channeling. That's where Reiki came in, and that's how come they were teaching Reiki. And that was my opening, because how can a nun teach you something wrong?
Well,
right?
yes.
Like, that was the thought process.
Mom didn't completely frown out.
Yeah, the mom, she was fine with it. But that was my opening, and then it became more of an exploration of different energetic practices and feeling the energy and understanding it and how it works and how you amplify energy, and you can send that to other people to help support them. So that's co-regulation and resonance. That's what that is. So when you're centered and resonant, that goes to somebody that is not regulated and helps settle their nervous system. So I kind of started understanding a little bit more of what was going on.
For me, Reiki was a little more basic than that. I went into it because I was like, it brings me that much closer to being like Shira, because she was able to heal the animals, and I wanted to heal the animals.
Yeah, that is true. Maddie's more of the animal.
I love animals.
St. Francis girl.
Yes, I am.
But everybody has some kind of opening, right? And direction.
A path.
And a path. Some people go hardcore and go into the grimoires and start reading how to conjure and how to, chaos magic or Wicca or whatever it is that they're drawn to. But it's all an evolution of self.
It all exists.
Yeah, it does. It does all exist.
Just depends on what fills your cup at that given time.
Yes.
So let's pivot to childhood ghost stories. So you all heard about the painting of the dog that rolled out, freaked us out. We touched on the cat, Twinkie, jumping around. But I want to hear anything that you remember from your childhood that was like still lingers with you.
I remember there was a lot of sleep paralysis, a lot of being in the in-between dreams and things happening in real life after. Let's see, I remember the death carriage. That was very interesting for me. So we lived.
Did you actually hear it?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
So we lived in an area that the sound is different in the desert. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it carries.
And it carries, and the energy is very different in the desert. And at that time, it wasn't very crowded and it wasn't very busy, so there's a lot of empty space. And we so happen to be an indigenous land, if I'm correct.
Oh yeah, all of it was.
So I remember laying in bed, and our room was a hot spot. I swear there's got to be a portal in there somewhere, but yeah, who knows? And of course, when you have young kids that are your cells are turning over and you're very energetically active, your light is like huge. So that's drawing things into you anyway, into your space. So imagine 3 developing with all this energy. I'm sure we were like bringing in a lot of stuff. That's why we had so much activity. If that is the case, that's my theory. But I remember laying in bed, and our area was very unique that when the dog started howling, you knew something was going on, right? And I'm not talking one dog. We're talking about you can hear them being set off like one by one, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shoot, what is out there? What is outside right now? Because that was for sure one of those things in my mind.
The
like,
angel of death.
Something's happening. And then I started hearing like a rumbling. What? And then I heard hooves of horses. And then I feel and hear it come over our roof. And our roof was flat, and then it had dirt on it or rocks,
Rocks.
right?
It was rocks.
And you could hear the rocks just like moving. And I was like in bed like this going, oh shit, I'm like, who is it? Like, just wondering who it is.
Who's
it coming for? And I don't know how I knew about the death carriage. Who knows? Maybe like
Mama talked about it.
Mom talked about it. Okay, well, what the hell? Maybe that went into my mind. And I went there.
But you heard it.
I heard it. And then the next day, Mom said that one of the older people passed away down the street.
Yeah.
So that was like one of those huge things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I knew that happened. I didn't see it, but I heard it and I felt it, and it wasn't anything bad. I think I was just like in like shock that was
that
real.
You were witnessing it.
That was happening in that moment in time. And then I didn't want to assign value to it or anything at the time. I was just like, I think I was in shock that it happened. And then afterwards, getting that affirmation. And then I think when I got the affirmation, that's when I got scared.
That's when you're like, oh my God, the stories are true.
It's true. Okay, thank you. I don't want to hear you again. But that was a lot of the things that would happen when the dogs would sense things and would howl. And you guys, if you would hear the howls, it was so crazy how they would all get set off. You knew that something was around.
Something was passing. Right,
exactly.
Because they would howl.
Right.
Yeah.
One after another.
Yeah, coming down the street.
Yeah, and you're like, oh God.
And then it wasn't people walking.
And it wasn't an ambulance or fire truck.
No, they were howling. Yeah.
And at the point, that neighborhood had a lot of dogs.
Yes.
And they had packs of dogs. The other thing in Carlos's room, I remember seeing a young man with a baseball hat. He was like over my bed. At the time, Carlos had already left the house and was in college, and he was like watching over me, and I was like, wow, are you the one that died in the house? And that's where my mind went.
Yep.
Because at that point I was a little bit older.
Right. So you were
I was
like,
a little bit more secure.
Now
Not
I'm okay.
as scared as when the whole Twinkie thing happened and the cat and then the scratching up in the corner. That was like, and then the curtains coming down, that freaked me.
I forgot about the curtains.
Yeah, the curtains. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, like something just like grabbed the curtains and just pulled it down. Because those were the old school curtains that you had to hook into hooks like that, and so they brought it up and then pulled it down. And me and Maria bolted out of that.
Oh heck yes!
So fast, we're like, oh my God. I don't know what was wanting to be known at that time. I think another time, like we had come home from Oaxaca. I don't know if you guys remember that when we were little, that something picked up.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Carlos spoke about that the last time.
My kids also have experienced stuff in the house. My two daughters, they were laying in the living room, and then they heard, "Hey!" someone yell at them, and they were in dead sleep, and both of them heard the same thing. And my oldest saw a little girl that said the hey to them, because my oldest can see things, the youngest feels things. So that was another thing that happened. And I remember also a little girl walking outside crying and walking around the streets. So we did have an active neighborhood.
Oh, the whole neighborhood had stuff in it.
And
for sure.
When you're a child, I think you're so much more open to things. So you're able to see more. When you get a little bit older, it's not that your eyes get shut. I think you start not paying attention to that
Right.
what is
There's
around
more
you,
distractions.
and then how our brain works. And it's only going to show you certain things, but because you're developing and you're learning all this new, I think your brain is more apt to capture more things
It's open.
than it is when you're older. So those are some of the main.
So
like,
since you
ghost
brought
stories.
up your kids, there was one thing that happened to Alina that freaked me out, and you weren't there. So she would do this little like skippy thing back and forth, and she was doing her little skippy thing back and forth in the living room, and then all of a sudden something pushes her and she projects forward like 2 steps, turns around and starts crying. And I was like, poor Leanie's. Yeah, it was very unfortunate. But she was good after that. We gave her some ice cream and she was fine afterwards. But it was poor little thing.
Yeah.
Something didn't like her there at that moment.
No, they probably thought, well, why are you skipping?
Yeah, like
right.
just push
Why
you
are you
real quick.
having fun?
Stop having fun in here. No fun.
She is one that she feels a lot of things and has a really big knowing. My oldest, or I remember even in other houses that we had that have activity in it. We had one home that we lived in that there was a man that was like, I call him like Miami Vice era, where he's wearing that 1980s tank top, right, and with the Bermuda shirts. You know what I'm talking about? Like in very, it was white, almost like
Jimmy Z tank
or Maui, whatever, Maui Brothers or something.
That's
like
not
that.
Miami Vice.
And then he had like really, really curly hair and blonde, and then a mustache. So I saw a full figure of this man.
It sounds like a surfer dude.
Yeah, like surf's up.
But he was angry. He was very, very angry. And I don't think he wanted us in that house, but you could hear him walking upstairs like all the time, like boom, 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 boom. And I remember trying to distract the kids about it. I'm like, oh, that's just like somebody up there. You can leave it alone. In that house, I had a little bit more experience. Again, you know, you have children in the house, you have a lot of activity sometimes.
Oh, very much so.
The oldest was very fearful in that house. She didn't want like to be left alone, so I would lay in the bed and hold both each other's hands. I had an astral projection experience in that wasn't very favorable for me, because that's something I also kind of do at night. In that moment, what I was doing is I was going ready to go off, and I had come out, and I'm laying in the bed with my youngest daughter, and I could see both of us in bed together, and I'm really ready to go set off right into wherever I'm going. And then I felt like uneasy, like something was going on, and something was not just right. And I heard like a male voice and something like heavy. Right. That's the best explanation I have. Really, really heavy and really high pitched noise. And I hear my daughter's voice, Mom, come back, Mom, come back. And I look down and Alina's asleep. She's not saying anything, but it's her voice telling me to come back. And then I see the bed start shaking, then the dresser starts shaking, and I like swoop right back into my body again. And I was like, what just happened? What was that? So there was.
Did they wake up from that?
The youngest just rolled over. Alina just rolled over. It was me that woke up, like looking at what was happening around the room, who was coming in, who was that was there in that moment. Maybe it was like an intersection of someone else
could be right. Where you start seeing other maybe parallel dimensions or people who are traveling as well, right.
And just a little bit of heavier energy that I couldn't understand, or maybe there was like some kind of dimension thing happening because the shaking was happening. So that was a whole interesting thing. And then it stopped me from astral projecting for a long time. For a while.
I mean, it puts off all the fears.
Because I was like, oh, wow, is that going to happen again? Or is there something out there that knows I'm there that's
correct?
Try? And then I went back into this childhood thing, and I don't know where we learned about that silver cord. Did we read that in a book?
It was, I don't remember if we read it in a book or saw it in a cartoon.
Okay, so you're all gonna have to refresh my memory. I don't remember the silver cord.
So the silver cord is when you leave your body. There's a
life
cord,
tether.
the life cord,
the tether. Okay.
the life cord that's attached to you, and you can't go too far or else you'll get lost.
It
You
was
won't.
it was in that book that I was telling you was in the bathroom about astral projection.
Was it?
It was the tether. Like
Yeah.
they
What
probably
book was
called it.
that?
I thought it was
And
the.
where did it come from?
I think Aunt Margaret left it there.
Because
But I
we
want to
read it.
say
I read something
somebody
like that.
brought that book into our house. I remember it being in the bathroom that we all shared.
Right.
And I could have sworn it was the Pablo, that one guy that we were talking
Carlos
about.
Castaneda?
Yes, Carlos Castaneda. But it might
No,
not
I
have
don't
been
think it
Carlos
was,
Castaneda.
'cause
There
his
were
books
Carlos
are-
Castaneda books in there as
Yeah.
well. But I think it's something that Aunt Margaret left, or somebody that had come to visit left those books in our house.
Interesting.
Okay, so
And
that's
I
where that
remember
source
reading
is.
that book. It was a blue cover and it had a lady that was like floating off on the cover.
Huh.
So maybe it planted a suggestion.
Maybe.
I-
Maybe that's possible.
Somebody was trying to plant suggestions.
Interesting.
Maybe it was a gate program. I'm
Maybe.
kidding.
Yeah, the gate program. Let's go down that rabbit
Then
hole.
maybe not today.
Yeah. I mean, if you expand your awareness and you're in that in between state, you will see things, and a lot of it is shadows that are watching. Because I remember one time when I first started doing it, I started expanding my awareness, and as my awareness expanded, off in the very right corner, at the top of the far right of where I could feel, I saw something hanging upside down,
Ew.
and it was watching me,
Ooh.
just a black figure.
Mm-mm.
And I wasn't afraid because I was just like, huh. And so it was one of those things where either I opened up my awareness and it attracted it, because it was like, ooh, I want to see what's happening here. Because sometimes when you use energy, it's like a beacon where other things that are sensitive can actually see it, and it draws them to you. Or it's always existed there, and your awareness is now opened to be able to actually see those things.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
your thinking mind is offline.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And
You're
it's not assigning anything.
It's not assigning anything to it, and now you're like, oh,
Surprise!
Surprise!
They're all around us.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. They're all
yeah.
around us.
And it wasn't heavy energy. It was there, and you're like,
Yeah.
huh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what else exists out there. So it piqued my curiosity of like, what else is out there that you could possibly interact with or see.
So when the people that just decide to go on the journeys, whether it's ayahuasca, mushrooms, peyote, is that the closest you can get without being in a dreaming state to being on that same plane?
I think
But in
that's an
real
altered
life,
state, right?
It's an altered state. But does that open you up to seeing the things that we normally filter?
So that is a very good question. I think it drops the
Inhibitions. It drops
default
the
mode network where you're always on guard. Your brain is looking for safety and protecting you at all times to survive. So that goes offline. So then now you're going into deeper recesses of the mind. And I think some of the research that they're showing on psychedelics is that there is some consistency with what's seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very fascinating. Like with ayahuasca, a lot of people see eyes looking at them. So that it is a very interesting thing that people are seeing the same things with mushrooms. They're looking at Aztec symbols or similar things like that. And then I think I don't know if it's MDMA.
It's DMT.
DMT. No, but
where they see the purple people.
But no, there's
MDMA is ecstasy.
Yeah, with IFS that they're seeing wise people come through.
Huh.
So it is very interesting to see if the brain is offline. If we're really radio receptors, are we picking up just everything that's around us?
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe that's what's happening.
So since you brought up commonalities and you spoke about your sleep paralysis everywhere, it made me go back to sleep paralysis, because one of the normal common things from like early Mesopotamia to current state is that there's so many commonalities: the chest pressure, somebody sitting on top of you, seeing a demon, seeing an entity. What did you experience in your sleep paralysis?
So it was like a black figure that would come over me, a shadow. And I couldn't move, and I remember being fully awake and wanting to move and scream and shout, but it wouldn't let me. and then eventually I would break free of it.
Yeah.
And that's how that would work.
I actually brought up one of the things, I think it was in our first episode, where you were having sleep paralysis and I saw you and I woke you up from it, but you were just like, I could see you with your mouth open trying to scream. Like, I assumed just from the look on your face, that's what you were trying to do. But eyes open, mouth open, you're like rigid and you're trying to scream. And I was like, wake up, wake up. It was horrifying. But I can only imagine how much more horrifying it was for you.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It is interesting how I'm trying to figure out what that was. If it was like some kind of brain chemical induced, or why it like shows you these images.
I don't know,
if that's what
because
that is.
that one dream that I talked to you about, the sleep paralysis I had in college with a black figure.
Yeah.
She had it that same night.
Oh shit. Okay.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
It was something similar to that. So, and at that point we were like, man, is Grandma trying to do some shit?
Was she astral projecting?
Yeah,
I mean, hold up. Let's rewind, because Grandma always said that she liked to visit us at night. So could it have been her, like, checking in, maybe saying her little prayers of discernment over us? Not doing it to be bad or negative, but
No.
could that have had that impact on you guys?
That could be a possibility. She was coming in and doing, like, we don't know. Like, I've in my learnings, I have come to hear and experience that people can come into your dream state.
Of course.
People can come and walk into bodies. People can call them walk-ins, right? People can do these things in the astral plane, especially in dream state. You're the closest. You're the veils,
The veils are thin
at that point, and you're in between two states. So there could be a possibility, but I don't think she would go over us like that. Would you think? And like, breathe.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that was, but it was definitely memorable. That's for sure.
Thankfully, I don't have any recollection. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just don't remember having an experience, and I'm so good with that.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want
the one interesting thing I want to talk about with my youngest when she was really little, like in another home. I remember she was afraid to sleep in her room that we assigned to her, and that room, you could feel heaviness in it. So I'm assuming something went down at that room, or if there's some kind of energy there. And a lot of the times there's different energies that are lost and don't know where to go or have an attachment to certain places. And children are more susceptible to seeing those things and having them attached to them. So the oldest was always like afraid, and her best way of explaining to me that it was the count. A vampire.
Mm-hmm.
She saw a vampire. The count, that was the biggest thing she could associate.
Like the count from Sesame Street?
Sesame Street.
Oh shit. Okay.
So she would just say that. I'm like, how did she associate the count? I was just trying to figure that out. And now you guys were talking about vampires earlier. That just came to my mind that that's what she would see. So I'm curious, like, was that an energy that it showed itself like that?
I think that it's the only frame of reference that they have, because my son would see things like he would see a black figure of a man come into his room and talk to him and tell him things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was his reference. So her reference could just be that, right? In her mind,
she's so little.
That's how she just processed that. And I think that that's the interesting thing about all of these things is energies. They'll take the form of whatever it is that's in your mind. However you can process them is where your belief system, what you've grown up with, what you've maybe recently seen, it'll take the form of that, because that's how you can process it. Right. That's how you can make sense of it in some way. Because at the end of the day, it's just energy. It just exists.
Yeah.
And the images of people and all of that stuff, I think that's probably residual energy or fragments. Because I do think that once you move on, your consciousness moves to the next, whatever it is, right? Whether it's another timeline that it just moved to, and now it's part of that, or in some beliefs, you go up and you look at your life, and you're ready at some other point to come back in when your DNA matches the DNA of whatever is there in that next physical
So
incarnation.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on that one. I think that there is entities that stay here and become earthbound because of that really strong attachment to whatever it is, that aren't replaying the same energetic signature. They're actually attaching themselves to people, and being a body again by attaching themselves to
Yeah, and I
other
think
people.
that's where, and I think that's where our paths kind of diverge, because I don't subscribe to that, but you do, and based on the work that you've done and kind of how the research that you've done on that, that's part of your belief system. Where for me, that's not part of my belief system, right?
Right.
So
And
it's kind of neat that we're
right talking about that.
talking
So
about
I
different.
think it's probably very true that it's the world that I am in, and in the world that I work in. So it's something that I see. So I do have a frame of
Right,
reference
and
for
you
it.
read books on it, and you
Right.
talk to people who are experts in that.
Right,
in
and that experience
me,
that
I'm
with other
unsure.
people.
I don't have an opinion on that at this point in time.
But I mean, I do have stories about that with my youngest, that she. So when children have surgery very, very young, it's believed that they're so open because they completely get knocked out, and they sometimes leave their bodies and watch what's happening. So at that point, there could be residuals also in that space. And what space you're in? You're in the hospital.
In that space.
You're in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So things sometimes can get attached to them. And it so happens that my youngest did, and I noticed in her, she started like almost like body of an old lady. I was trying to explain that, like, the body became a body of an old lady, like when I would look at her, like. So what I finally did is I took her to somebody, an extractor, to just see her and just make sure she was like okay, because I was seeing things like in the
she wasn't her normal self
in the residual body, and sure enough, she had an attachment. Like, I didn't even say anything to this person. She was just going to go in to just get looked at it and tell her that I think she has an attachment. But that wasn't my deal, and I never do that whenever I go to support people. We'll call them that, to be able to help you when you work in certain things, because everybody should have support people to keep their energies clear. But yeah, she did have an attachment of an old woman, and this old woman was someone that just got stuck, and Alina was one of those that was right there in the moment, and she befriended her, and was a source of a siphoning of things of sorts, and that person was removed. And the interesting thing is, my daughter doesn't talk very much. She's a bit more of an observer. But once it was removed, she just started bawling and crying, which is unusual for her in that way. And then she said that, Mom, I actually literally feel lighter, and her shoulders like came back more, and she's not a believer in things, which made it even more interesting. So that was one of the things that I thought. I was like, oh yeah, she had surgery at a young age, so this is probably something that has been with her for such a long time. So there was no, like, she didn't notice a difference as a child, but once things were removed, then she did notice the difference of not having that attachment with her. So I'm like, oh, okay. So when I see people that are labeled as having mental health, like really severe mental health issues, I always wonder, is it that they have attachments to them that are coming through,
Maybe.
or that need support and extraction, versus a chemical imbalance really happening in the brain. So that's just.
So I think we'll have to take that onto a maybe record tomorrow before you leave for part two.
We'll do a part two,
because one of our previous podcasts, we actually touch on psych rotation and an experience I had.
Yes. So
it kind of aligns with what you're saying there. So I think we need to pivot here because it's gone on for just a little bit. fascinating conversation. But yeah, let's revisit for a part 2.
Yep. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you for
really
tuning
appreciate
in.
it.
And I wanted to do a quick cheers for the power of 3.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers, cheers. And thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We can go on for hours.
I was getting eaten up.
I know. I saw Carlos keeping